I stood there, soaked in sweat from my morning run, heart pounding for a different reason now. The air in the house felt colder than it should have in summer. Something wasn't right. Hadn't been for months. The coffee machine whirred behind me, but I couldn't hear it over the echo of a truth I wasn't ready to face. My name is Adrian Voss, 37, quiet, observant, dependable. I build systems for high-stakes security contracts. Ironically, I couldn't even detect the collapse of my own marriage happening in plain sight. Across the room, Olivia, my wife of nearly 6 years, leaned against the hallway archway in a silk dress she hadn't worn in ages. The lipstick was new. So were the heels. Her phone screen lit up her face with a glow that didn't belong to me anymore. "I'll be out tonight," she said casually, not even looking up. That line, delivered with that calm, rehearsed indifference, it split me open from the inside. I turned slowly, mug in hand, heart in pieces. "Where to?" Her eyes finally met mine. Cold, unapologetic. "To spend the night with Marcus," she said. Just like that. Like she was telling me she was out for a facial or dinner with the girls. "You remember Marcus, right? From my yoga class. The one with the lake house." I stared at her, not breathing, not blinking, just staring. I had seen Marcus once, a chiseled, overly charismatic man in tight joggers who had once given me a smug nod at a wine tasting. I never imagined she'd— "You're kidding," my voice cracked. "No," she replied, tone flat. "He's exciting, fun. He makes me feel like a woman again. You make me feel like I'm trapped in a never-ending routine." Each word was deliberate, every syllable designed to cut deeper than the last. I stepped forward, trying to find something in her eyes that still remembered me. There was nothing. "We built this life together," I whispered. "You used to smile when I came home. We used to talk until 2 a.m. about dreams, movies, ideas. What happened?" "You happened," she snapped, finally showing emotion, but not the kind I needed. "You got boring, Adrian. Predictable. You stopped chasing me the second I said I do. You love comfort. I need fire." And I was frozen, but not with sadness. Not anymore. The first seed of something darker had planted itself deep in my chest. Rage. Not loud rage, quiet rage. The kind that waits, watches, plots. "Go then," I said finally, my voice low, deadly calm. "But don't expect this house to be here when you return." She smirked and walked past me, deliberately brushing her shoulder against mine. Her perfume lingered for hours after she slammed the front door. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even pour myself a drink. I sat down with a pen and paper and began writing everything I knew about her, about Marcus, about the last 6 months of unexplained late nights, lingerie receipts, new accounts, new passwords. And I realized something terrifying. I hadn't lost her that night. I had already lost her. I just hadn't noticed until she finally decided to rub it in my face. 3 months earlier, I remember the way her laughter had started sounding forced, like she was mimicking joy instead of feeling it. Olivia had always been vibrant, spontaneous. Weekend getaways, breakfast in bed just because, humming our wedding song while folding laundry. But lately, everything about her felt rehearsed, distant, robotic. I should have seen it then. When I came home one evening with her favorite Thai takeout, she barely acknowledged me. "Oh, I already ate," she muttered, not looking up from her iPad. "Thought you had a long meeting," I said, confused. She hesitated. "It ended early." But there were 2 empty wine glasses in the sink, and a musky cologne I didn't wear, lingering faintly in the air. I didn't question it that night. I should have, but I didn't want to believe it. I convinced myself she had a friend over, maybe Jen from her Pilates group, or her cousin Rachel. I was too trusting, too naive. But that night was the beginning. Her phone started living on silent, face down on the table, and the passwords changed. When I asked why, she laughed and told me I was being paranoid, that a woman deserves her privacy. I agreed, like an idiot, because I wasn't a controlling husband. I believed in trust. Meanwhile, she used that freedom to run wild. It wasn't just the phone, it was the secrets. She began staying out late, saying it was a new fitness class or late meetings for the nonprofit she volunteered with. She'd return home glowing, literally glowing, with a kind of radiance I hadn't seen in years. She didn't even try to hide it. One night, I followed her. She had left saying she had a women's networking mixer downtown, but I watched her meet Marcus in the underground parking lot of the Cove Hotel. She ran into his arms like a teenager in love, kissed him like I hadn't been kissed in years. It was like watching a dream shatter in real time. I sat there, parked half a block down, the wheel under my palms trembling with how tightly I gripped it. She didn't know I saw. I drove home in silence, walked inside, and stared at our wedding photo above the mantel. She still wore her ring. She still said "love you" when she left in the morning. It was all performance, and I had front row tickets to the show. By week 2, I stopped asking questions. I played along, acted like the devoted husband. But inside, something had changed in me. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It wasn't just sexual. It was existential. I felt erased. She had taken all of me, my loyalty, my commitment, my sacrifices, and treated them like loose change on the nightstand. I started documenting everything. I backed up her phone to a hidden cloud server, pulled text logs, traced bank statements. Marcus had been buying her lingerie, jewelry, hotel suites under fake names. He even took her on a weekend trip to Sedona. She told me she was attending a conference. The lies were endless, but I didn't confront her. Why? Because rage burns quick. Revenge. Revenge must simmer. And now, I have plans. I started waking up earlier, running longer. My body changed, leaner, harder. She didn't notice, or maybe she did and didn't care. I started planting seeds, slowly pulling back my involvement in our shared finances, removing her access from backup accounts, routing paychecks through new entities. I buried everything in shell companies. The woman who once knew every corner of my life suddenly didn't know anything at all. She came home one night smelling like a different man and had the audacity to ask, "Why are you so distant lately?" I smiled, because when someone shows you who they really are, you don't fight to keep them. You give them exactly what they asked for: freedom. Then you make sure they regret it deeply. It started at a charity auction. Marcus Dwight was the kind of man who thrived on attention. Silver tongue, designer suits, the type who'd lean too close and always hold your hand just a second too long. He donated a trip to Lake Como that night and cracked a joke that had the whole room laughing, including Olivia. She told me about him that night. "You'd like him," she said with a shrug. "He owns a few fitness centers, pretty sharp." I didn't think anything of it at the time, but that was the night everything began. He messaged her a few days later. She didn't tell me. She deleted the texts after replying. At first, she resisted. She really did. She ignored his advances, told him she was married. He said, "So am I." And that was the hook. He told her he wasn't looking for anything serious, just connection. Something real in a world of obligations and routines. She laughed it off at first, but then came the private messages, the late-night calls, the flirty emojis, the accidental run-ins at the juice bar near her studio. And Marcus had one weapon I no longer possessed: novelty. He didn't know her flaws yet. He only saw the woman she wanted him to see. The charming, witty, captivating version of herself. The one I once knew but hadn't seen in years. Olivia told herself she deserved this. That I didn't see her anymore. That she'd tried to fix the marriage. That I had grown distant. She wrote a narrative that made her the victim and Marcus the savior. And Marcus? He was good. He told her he'd never met someone who got him like she did. That her smile haunted him. That she made him believe in second chances. He was a professional manipulator, and she was an eager student. They met in hotels, in parked cars, at the back of yoga studios closed for renovation. He called her Liv, said it made her sound younger, freer. She started dressing differently. Brighter colors, more revealing cuts. The Olivia I knew had once been modest, classic. Now she was chasing youth like an addict or something. She told Marcus about our marriage. She told him things I never imagined she'd share. My insecurities, our struggles, our lack of intimacy in recent years. She painted me as the reason she felt dead inside. And Marcus? Oh, he loved playing the hero. He offered her a future, one without rules, one where she could wake up and chase sunshine instead of alarm clocks. He said I had boxed her in. She believed him. That's when she stopped trying to hide it. She began dressing up on nights she said she was just running errands, wearing lipstick to grab coffee, buying new lingerie without removing the tags because Marcus was the one who unwrapped her now. And I watched it all. Every text, every lie, every plan they made. She told him I'd never fight back, that I'd crawl into my tech cave and lick my wounds. She said I was safe, predictable, boring. She had no idea who I really was. I started tracking Marcus. He owned 3 gyms, all under a parent company called Core Shift. Looked impressive on the surface, but when I began digging deeper, I found cracks, tax filings, discrepancies in invoices, suspicious vendor names with 0 digital footprint. It was all House of Cards level unstable. He ran his business on charm and adrenaline. No structure, no redundancy. The kind of empire that looked solid but could crumble if nudged from the right angle. I started nudging, quietly. I created dummy clients, scheduled consultations, then ghosted. I launched subtle smear campaigns under fake social profiles accusing his gyms of fraud, harassment, tax evasion. Just whispers at first. But whispers, when repeated enough, become truth. At home, I gave Olivia nothing to suspect. I kissed her cheek in the morning, brought her coffee, acted distant enough for her to believe I was retreating into myself. She was convinced I was broken, but I wasn't broken. I was building a fuse, and when I lit it, they would both burn. Olivia's world had become electric. Every message from Marcus came with a rush. Every lie she told me gave her more control. She had rewritten her reality to make room for him, carefully editing out the guilt. To her, this wasn't cheating. This was freedom. She wasn't leaving her husband. She was escaping a prison. That's what she told herself. And Marcus? He played his part like a seasoned actor. He took her to jazz clubs where no one knew her name, whispered promises of a life without rules, mortgages, or responsibilities. Told her, "You weren't made to fold laundry, Liv. You were made to ignite people." She ate it up. She started believing she'd been born for something more, that loving me had been the mistake, that Marcus saw her. But what she didn't know was that Marcus had said the same lines to at least 3 other women in the past year. One of them had left her husband and ended up working reception in one of his gyms, broken, ashamed, invisible. Another moved across state lines and never heard from him again. Marcus didn't do love, he did control. And Olivia had no idea she was just another project. While she floated in her illusion, I was working, calculating. Every detail mattered. I set up a new LLC under a false name. Through it, I started acquiring stock in Marcus's company, quietly, through shell investors, shadow accounts. I knew his gyms were bleeding money, and with the right pull at the right time, they'd collapse like dominoes. But I didn't just want to ruin his business. I wanted to ruin him, his reputation, his image, his legacy. I hired a private investigator. Cash payment, no paper trail. The man was ex-military, discreet, and very, very good at what he did. Within a week, I had photos of Marcus with 2 other women, one in her 20s, another one married with children. I had enough dirt to bury him 6 feet deep, but I waited. One night, Olivia came home wearing the necklace Marcus bought her, the same one she claimed she got on sale. I played along. I made dinner. I poured wine. She told me about her volunteer committee meeting, and I nodded like a man too tired to care anymore, but inside, I was on fire. She didn't know I'd already drained our joint savings, that I had moved our house into a trust under my name alone, that her car lease was canceled, that all her credit cards were now linked to accounts she no longer had access to. She thought I'd roll over and cry. She had no idea that by next month she'd be penniless. And Marcus? He'd be in handcuffs. 3 days later, I sent an anonymous tip to the IRS, complete with fabricated ledgers, shady contracts, fake employee reports. Just enough to spark a full audit. Not enough to trace back to me. The house of cards had been nudged, and it started to tremble. Meanwhile, Olivia started making plans to move in with Marcus. She thought it was forever. She told her sister, "Adrian will survive. He always does. He's too numb to fight back." That line made me smile. Because the difference between numbness and calm is that calm is dangerous. Calm waits, listens, and strikes only once. I had waited long enough. Everything was in motion now. The seeds I planted, so carefully, so quietly, were finally growing into something destructive, something irreversible. Marcus's business empire, once propped up on charm, lies, and over-leveraged ambition, had begun to hemorrhage from every angle. First, the corporate accounts. I used fabricated vendor reports, documents designed to look legitimate to trigger his internal compliance team. 2 anonymous complaints later, and he was under internal audit. Then came the clients. The private equity partners who had once flooded him with cash started pulling back, all thanks to subtle, rumor-filled whispers delivered via burner emails and pro-LinkedIn messages. No one wanted to risk scandal. The moment was close, and Olivia? She had no idea. She kept showing up to her home like everything was normal, using the guest bathroom, making tea, humming while scrolling through her phone. She truly thought she still had power here, but I had already emptied every account she thought she could fall back on, froze her credit cards, reworked the property trust to block her from any future claim on the house. She wasn't just losing Marcus, she was about to lose her safety net. She just didn't know it yet. One morning, she stormed through the front door, face flushed, voice trembling. "They froze Marcus's personal accounts," she said. "He doesn't even know why. Everything's just gone." I didn't blink. I didn't offer comfort. I simply stirred sugar into my coffee and said, "Interesting." That word landed like a knife. She blinked at me. "Adrian, did you have something to do with this?" I stood, walked toward her, and smiled. "I warned you the night you left. I told you not to expect this house to be here when you came back." Her expression crumbled. "You're not capable of this," she said, shaking her head. "You're right, Olivia. I was that man, but not anymore." Her hands trembled. She looked around the kitchen as if seeing it for the first time, as if realizing it wasn't her home anymore. "Where do I even go?" she whispered. "I'm not your problem solver anymore." I picked up the envelope on the counter and handed it to her, her name written neatly across the front. Inside, official notice of severed power of attorney, her removal from our estate trust, and pre-signed divorce paperwork. All legal, final, unchallenged. She stared at the papers as if they were fire in her hands. "This wasn't just revenge," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "This was survival." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just left, slowly, with the envelope clutched against her chest. She walked out the same door she once slammed shut without a second glance. But this time, she didn't look back. 3 days after Olivia vanished from my life, Marcus was served officially. The allegations included tax fraud, embezzlement, sexual harassment, and data privacy violations. All submitted anonymously. All backed by fabricated but believable evidence I'd spent months constructing. The cherry on top, a confidential letter to one of his ex-investors detailing Marcus's secret relationship with Olivia while she was still legally married. A line in the letter read, "He manipulates women as recklessly as he mismanages assets. What happens when both collapse at once?" The investor forwarded that letter to 2 media outlets. By morning, Marcus's name was trending. By noon, his gyms were being picketed, and by evening, he was arrested. It wasn't the kind of high-profile takedown you see on the news with flashing lights and press conferences. No, this was worse. This was quiet, isolating public humiliation masked under financial collapse and moral rot. The headlines didn't say, Marcus Dwight, fitness mogul. They said, Marcus Dwight, predator in gym clothing. He lost everything. Businesses, investors, reputation, legal protection. And just like that, he was no longer the man Olivia ran to. He was just another criminal in a cheap suit. I didn't celebrate. There was no music, no toast, just the sound of silence in a house that was finally mine again. But it wasn't peace I felt. Not yet. It was clarity. For years I had poured myself into a life that was quietly draining me. I tried to fix a marriage while she tore it apart. I tried to love someone who had already left me, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, long before she physically walked out that door. I wasn't rebuilding from ashes. I was finally freeing myself from the chains I had welded around my own feet. 1 week later, I received a call from her. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Adrian, I know I don't deserve your voice, but I needed to tell you I was wrong about you. About everything. Marcus used me. I see that now. But you never did. You just loved me. I hope you're okay. I hope you're happy. Goodbye. I deleted the message, not out of anger, but because I'd already said goodbye. And this time, I meant it. The days grew quieter. I replaced the dining table she loved with one of my own choosing. Modern, clean, minimal. I painted the walls, took down every photo that had her in it, donated every dish, pillow, and perfume bottle she left behind. It was like erasing the remains of a ghost, but not because I wanted to forget her, because I had already forgiven myself. And that was enough. I started seeing someone, a woman named Claire. We met through mutual friends, quiet, grounded, intuitive, the kind of woman who noticed things, who asked why before assuming. She didn't know my history, not at first, and I didn't offer it immediately. When I eventually did, I expected her to flinch. She didn't. She just listened and said, I'm glad you didn't let it break you. That was when I realized something profound. I hadn't just survived the betrayal. I'd reclaimed myself. Every step of the revenge, every carefully placed blow, it wasn't about hurting Olivia or Marcus. It was about reclaiming the version of myself I had sacrificed for their comfort. And now, he was back. Stronger, wiser, unapologetically awake. 6 months after Marcus's arrest, I received a letter, handwritten, from Olivia. The handwriting was shaky, the ink slightly smeared. Adrian, if this reaches you, thank you for opening it. I know I don't deserve your time. You were right about everything. I thought Marcus was freedom, but he was just another cage with velvet bars. You were real. You loved me when I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't just cheat on our marriage. I cheated myself out of the only thing that was ever truly mine. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, Olivia. I folded the letter once, laid it in the fireplace, and watched it burn. Not out of rage, but resolution. Because I didn't need her sorrow. I didn't need closure. I was the closure. I had already closed the chapter and started writing a new one. One where I didn't look back. One where I no longer asked, why did she leave? But instead asked, why did I ever beg her to stay?